and welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, the BJP has reshuffled the parliamentary board and its the Central Election Committee, dropping a few high-profile names. We saw Nitin Gadkari being shafted. We also saw Shivraj Singh Chauhan being dropped. These are important names in the BJP hierarchy, names which are also close to the RSS. So is there a sort of a message being sent to the RSS? BJP spokespersons, of course, said that this new composition of the parliamentary board shows a more inclusive BJP, shows what the new next-gen BJP under Modi Shah is going to be like. There is no Muslim representation also in either of the two top bodies. Shahnawaz Hussain has been dropped. After Naqvi's exclusion from the cabinet, it seems that the BJP is now making it very clear that they don't want to pay lip service to the Muslim minority. They would do things like triple talaq, but they're not going to give them tokenism. Whatever the message is, there is also the inclusion of a Sikh, Iqbal Singh Lalpura, in the parliamentary board. For the first time, a Sikh has been included. So a lot of mixed messaging over here to decode the larger impact of what the reshuffle means, and is it all going to be leading to a cabinet reshuffle? I have joining me on the panel, we have Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay. He is an author, columnist. He's written a book on the RSS, a book on Prime Minister Modi. We have Radhika Ramaseshan. She's a political commentator, analyst, and columnist also. And Shekhar Iyer, also a columnist and a political analyst. So I'll begin with you, Shekhar. What is your first takeaway from the reshuffle? You know, what do you feel? Have I got it right in saying there is a message to the RSS in shafting Gadkari, first of all?
Well, Priya, as you said it in your introductory remarks, you know, there are mixed messages, but then we must also understand that the BJP has undergone tremendous change. I mean, since I would say 2013, 2014. So a lot of things are happening, a lot of things are unhappening also. Equations are being changed and equations are being rewritten. And then whatever we say today or whatever we understand today may not last, say, until next year, because JP Nadda's term is anyway due to end in January. Now, what is significant is just before a term of a president is ending now, a parliamentary board is reconstituted, because all these years, 3 years, they were not constituted, but they are being constituted now with just with January's term ending. We do not know who is going to be the next president. I think the basic thing is coming across is there are political messages. There are messages about relationship between the Sangh, the BJP and its political ideologue or mentor. But even that equation has changed, because we must also understand the fact Narendra Modi is one of the RSS thing, who has completely all over the BJP today. So previously, you had two distinct, fields. One, the RSS and its own brand of leaders who move up the hierarchy in the RSS. Then you had people who had moved from the RSS to BJP long ago, and those who came from the non-RSS background. But today it is not like that. You see, after all, Narendra Modi himself is a Swayam Sevak. So, and Mohan Bhagwat would all, in that comparison, they would all either be contemporaries or even juniors, one can say, in terms of field work or in terms of field political work. So therefore, in terms of whether equations have been rewritten, I would say they were rewritten long ago. Now, if parliamentary board is the deciding body or anything like that, I don't think so. We all know who decides today in the BJP. So these are all structures which are there, but they are also used to send the social messages when needed. For instance, you have Satyanarayana Jatia coming in, a Dalit face, or you have Yedurappa coming in is a Lingayat face. I mean, similarly, you have Sudha Yadav, complete green on. Of course, she contested, she won one Lok Sabha election, she lost two. She is there completely green on in terms of the RSS BJP kind of politics, but a fresh face in terms of projection. So there is a lot of mixed messages, but also let us remember, if Yogendra Adityanath Yogi is not there, it doesn't mean he has been downsized or upsized or anything, because a lot of the speculation about who would be in was in the realm of the media rather than within the Sangh, because these days, whatever happens in the BJP, these are invariably, it takes everyone by surprise, even those who are in the BJP, because the timing, the messaging that has to be done is all decided by we know whom. So therefore, I think on the basis of what has happened today, yes, on the face of it, it will look, the arrow is up for some and the arrow is down for some. But I don't think the last word can be said at any given point of time, given the way the things are being run in the BJP.
Nilanjan, what does it say about the BJP RSS? Are we reading too much into it? It is Modi all the way, even where the RSS is concerned. But dropping Nitin Gadkari, now that's a big snub. It's a public snub, isn't it?
I think, we have to understand that this change indicates that the BJP is going through a phase where it is the most centralized organizational setup which has ever been there within the BJP. The BJP, right from the time in 1980 that it was formed and through the 1980s and 1990s, was very distinctive for a collegiate style of functioning. That there was a president, there were top leaders, but that there was a broad amount of charcha or a discussion which used to precede any major discussion. Those kind of backroom talks and chats used to happen. I see that in the last 8 years, they have virtually diminished. There's very little is actually taking place. And more or less, it is now a party where there is a full stop right after the person at the top. Right after Mr. Modi, there is a full stop. I know that we tend to hyphenate Mr. Narendra Modi and Amit Shah, but I think that we must understand that I think it would be incorrect to club the two of them together, because I think Mr. Modi is the clear leader and Mr. Amit Shah is the person who is actually executing his wishes. The leadership stops there. There isn't any other leadership. This particular change which has happened, I think, that this is the closest to a purge, that we can actually see within the Indian political system. In fact, I was joking with some of my friends who used to study Soviet history that I'm going to come and study about the various Stalinist purges. Yes, that's actually just a matter of joke. But the point is that Nitin Gadkari being dropped, Shivraj Singh Chauhan being dropped, both in their 60s. The clear message is, of course, there would be argument that there is no sitting chief minister. Yogi Adityanath is also not there. But Devendra Fadnavis has been brought into the election committee, rules are made or specified to be bent. That is the way it is done. But dropping people who are in their 60s is a clear message that fall foul in any way of the leader, your chances of continuing in the top hierarchy is very little. Shekhar rightly pointed out that is the parliamentary board as relevant as it used to be, say, 10 years, 15 years, or even prior to 2014, any of the years. We know the kind of turbulence which the parliamentary board went through the years after the NDA lost elections in 2004. Even the RSS was involved in the internal tussles which used to take place within the parliamentary board, and the leadership trying to get Mr. Advani to step down, make way for a new leadership to come in. So there has been a certain amount of change. Your question about the RSS, I think that the RSS since 2014 has increasingly become co-opted. Shekhar did raise the point about personal equations. Well, Mohan Bhagwat and Mr. Narendra Modi go very, back together right from the 1970s. They're almost, they're the same age, both are born in September 1950, at least as far as their official birthdays are concerned. Mr. Mohan Bhagwat is born incidentally on the 11th of September and Narendra Modi on the 17th of September, as the certificates say. But Mr. Mohan Bhagwat's father, Madhukar Rao Bhagwat, he was one of the early mentors of Mr. Modi. One of the books which Mr. Modi wrote, Jyoti Punj, has one chapter, where he profiles various leaders of the Sangh Parivar. So has a chapter on Madhukar Rao Bhagwat in which he speaks very glowingly of the kind of influences which were there in his early career, when he was coming into the RSS. So Mr. Bhagwat and and Narendra Modi go back together right to the 1970s. But yes, Mr. Bhagwat has accepted the fact that Mr. Modi is the vote gatherer. And as far as the basic political agenda of the RSS is being served by Mr. Modi, either through the government and in the party, the fact that Muslims are no longer being represented in the highest decision-making body. I think that these are very much part of the RSS. We also have to, the RSS agenda, what I'm saying, Hindutva agenda. We must also understand, we have actually spoken about the RSS. The RSS really never had an economic agenda. We keep on talking about and trying to find one, say that economic nationalism. But the closest that they came was evolved by Dattopant Thengdi in the 1990s in opposition to liberalization and India becoming part of the WTO, when the Swadeshi Jagran Manch was set up, and he collaborated with the left and the very targeted left and liberal cabal, as of today, So those were the kind of people with whom they associated. So I see that the RSS is perfectly happy, and it has given Mr. Modi a free run as far as he delivers on the social platform, and that this is the time when it is less of a Bharatiya Janata Party, more of a Modi Janata Party.
Radhika, Nilanjan also spoke of the purge. So, I was just looking at the list. Rajnath Singh is the last man standing from the Vajpayee era. There is also a purge, not just age, because Yediyurappa is 79, so it's not really an age factor. It is a purge of the old BJP, isn't it?
Well, Priya, I think first of all, Shekhar very lucidly set out the parameters for the discussion. I mean, he flagged the most pertinent points there are to flag. Firstly, Modi is and was and remains a pracharak, though he's fully into electoral politics. Now, regarding the purge, I would sort of divide NDA 2.0 into two segments, 2014 to 2019 and 2019 thereafter. Now, when Modi came into Lutyens' Delhi, by the way, he was not unfamiliar with Delhi. He had served as a general secretary. He knew the ins and outs of Lutyens' Delhi. I think he used the opportunity to study everything very closely, including the media, the power play that exists here in Delhi, and the institutions of control, dominance. He used his term very wisely, I must say. But as Prime Minister, he still needed some shepherding. So I think he was not 100% confident when he came in 2014. And hence, if you remember, Shivraj Singh Chauhan was inducted in the parliamentary board in 2014 or 2015, if I remember right. Now, why? I mean, everybody looked upon Shivraj Singh Chauhan as some kind of a competitor, and Shivraj Singh Chauhan reveled in that perception, because in 2013, when there was a national executive session at Talkatora Stadium, you could see two point and a counterpoint emerging. Point from Mr. Modi, very aggressive, very belligerent speech, which set out the parameters for the campaign that was to follow before 2014, and Shivraj Singh Chauhan, the more humane, the more inclusive space, so to speak. And the response of the audience made it very clear which side they were on. Shivraj Singh Chauhan got a few claps, but the thunderous applause was reserved for Modi. So Modi had clearly won the debate, had clearly won the day. So if Shivraj Singh Chauhan did his skullcap wearing act in Bhopal and so on, he definitely tried to project himself as a foil to Mr. Modi. So therefore, when he was brought into the parliamentary board, eyebrows were raised. What happened? I mean, is Modi succumbing to RSS pressure? There's nothing of that kind. Mr. Modi just wanted to play it a little safe. Same thing with Gadkari. Gadkari and Modi did not have the best of relations. Modi, in fact, boycotted a national executive session which was called during Gadkari's time, because Gadkari had, appointed Sanjay Joshi, Mr. Modi's betanua, even till this day, as a general secretary, and put him in charge of Uttar Pradesh, the 2012 Uttar Pradesh elections, which of course the BJP did miserably in. So he did not turn up. The reason being that it's Navratra and he's on fast and he's only sipping water and so on. But nonetheless, he made Gadkari a minister, gave him some important portfolios. And of course, Gadkari remained in the parliamentary board as a former president. So I think this is a slightly tentative Modi that we saw, who needed to be shepherded around Delhi by the late Arun Jaitley. He was quite dependent on Arun Jaitley. 2019 was a different ball game. Here is Mr. Modi in full glory, in all his colors, emerging as the be-all and end-all of BJP. To the extent that I agree with Nilanjan, the RSS has been thoroughly co-opted. There was an effort in 2015 when the RSS intervened to make peace between the various affiliates of the Parivar when they objected to some issue. I think it was a Hindutva related issue when, the Hindu Jagran Manch and went on this whole Ghar Wapasi agenda and Mr. Modi disapproved of it. Bhagwat did intervene and tried to make peace between the various constituents, but that was about it. So what you see this time is RSS taking a backseat. I'm not saying RSS is subservient or anything. As Nilanjan rightly said, the government is executing the RSS's agenda, the party in its own way. So why should the RSS be upset? Mr. Modi is the best prime minister the RSS could possibly have got. I mean, if you look back at the Vajpayee days, there was constant friction between the RSS and the BJP. RSS, which was then headed by K.S. Sudarshan, and Madan Das Devi was the peacemaker. He had to intervene actively every now and then. Now, that is a bygone chapter. That doesn't exist anymore. Now, regarding this, Nitin Gadkari and Shivraj Singh Chauhan were expediently dropped this time because this parliamentary board is Mr. Narendra Modi's. It is not JP Nadda's. It is not Amit Shah. It is not anybody else, but it is Mr. Narendra Modi's. And Sudhaya, and Modi, by the way, has this penchant for resurrecting people out of nowhere. Satya Narayan Jatia, I mean, he himself had retreated. And in fact, I was just seeing a bio on Google says that he is in retirement. I mean, look, nobody is in retirement as far as Mr. Modi is concerned, except when he wants to send someone to the Margdarshak Mandal. So Satya Narayan Jatia, Sudha Yadav. I mean, who would have thought? So Sudha Yadav is not a nominal woman in the parliamentary board. She is an OBC representative from Haryana, and in the complex mosaic of Haryana politics, it's about the Jats, it's about the Bishnois, but it's also about the OBCs. So I would imagine they would use Sudha Yadav in some way or the other. So,
I'm going to take a break and come back and keep the discussion going. Look at the parliamentary board and what it entails, but after a quick break. Hello and welcome back to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. We're here discussing the revamp of the BJP's parliamentary board. And Shekhar, everybody is not agreeing with you in that this is really Modi's stamp, and it is Modi who's running the show. So he just needs to showcase some people, and that's all that he needs to do. But what does it mean for the future of Nitin Gadkari? And was Gadkari asking to be shafted? He's also not been keeping quiet in the last few weeks.
Well, Gadkari, Modi's relationship is, one can't, there are no black and white areas actually. See, after all, Gadkari heads a very important portfolio, is in charge of infrastructure, which is a thrust area of Prime Minister Modi. And then we all know that Gadkari is very close to the RSS because he also belongs to Nagpur. And the kind of services he has rendered on his personal account to RSS, many RSS leaders are indebted to him for their own, what should I say, in terms of taking care of them. In some of the very old RSS leaders, they are all under the care of Nitin Gadkari. If you go to RSS headquarters in Nagpur or speak to anyone in Nagpur, they'll tell you how much has Gadkari done for all those veterans, that is there. But at the same time, the dynamics of Maharashtra politics has been such where Nitin Gadkari has felt he has been left out, or that his counsel has not been heeded to, and that the new changes that have come, and with the rise of Devendra Fadnavis, who also incidentally belongs to Nagpur, that has changed a lot of the way the Nitin Gadkari looks at his relationship with the Prime Minister. But at the same time, let us not assume that the last word has been said on Gadkari, because Gadkari's own people now tell me that Gadkari is there on the scene. See, so long as BJP keeps winning elections, whether it is in the assembly elections or the next Lok Sabha elections, we do not know. So long as, you see, the winnability is the criteria, winnability is the factor. If you can win elections, like at one time Indira Gandhi could win elections, I don't think there was anyone in the Congress who would ask questions to Indira Gandhi. So similarly, we are seeing a situation where winnability has become important, and whatever goes into making winnability, there may be contradictions, there may be seemingly, opposing streams clashing at points, but the idea is to somehow ensure that the BJP get best of results. Otherwise, look at the Yediyurappa's induction. See, Yediyurappa was persuaded to leave because he was 75, and it was felt his health was telling upon the administration, apart from the fact, that there were lots of complaints about the conduct of his family members, of his sons, in the functioning of the government, to a point where they felt that perhaps continuing with Yediyurappa would bring huge diminishing return. Not that by bringing Basavaraj Bommai, things have changed dramatically. They haven't. But then Basavaraj Bommai was chosen by Yediyurappa. And the other factor in Karnataka, BJP under the guidance of the RSS want to get out of that being a Lingayat party. And under Yediyurappa, the BJP appeared to be very much a Lingayat party, so much so that they had difficulty in trying to get people, the other important communities like say Kurbas or Okalingas. So the strategy was, gradually shift Yediyurappa out for those various reasons and try to bring another leader. So the interim period, they got another Lingayat leader, that was Basavaraj Bommai. But things have not calmed down, and the things are downhill in Karnataka today. So, because their own internal surveys indicate perhaps the BJP could be single largest party like in the previous election, but could hugely fall short of numbers. Because
him for his Lingayat thing to bring in the votes to balance.
Therefore, bringing Yediyurappa is more like, I would say, it may last until April, May, June of next year, by the time the Karnataka elections are completed. Because Karnataka is a big challenge, and you have seen Yediyurappa himself felt very elated after his inclusion. The press conference he addressed in Bengaluru, where he has mentioned, that I'm going to work for the party in the entire South. See, the problem there is Yediyurappa is yet to say.
I'm going to cut you a bit short because we need to get back to the parliamentary board. And last word from both of you, Nilanjan and Radhika. Shekhar mentioned that Nadda's term is coming to an end. I find that a very interesting fact. Will Nilanjan, do you see him getting an extension? Will Amit Shah go back to the party? That's also what we are hearing.
No, I don't think Amit Shah needs to go back to the party. He can very much control the party to the extent that Mr. Modi wants him while being the Home Minister of the country. So I think, the basic message being is that this is an absolutist leadership, that if you commit a crime, as some of there were allegations against Gadkari for several months, that he makes too many loose statements. Very recently he went to Nagpur and said that I feel like quitting politics. So Mr. Modi's response would be that you want to quit politics. So first of all, let's begin by getting you to quit the parliamentary board. Now, whether he can stage a comeback or not would depend on his conduct hereafter. Look at Ravi Shankar Prasad. He has been dropped from the Union Cabinet, but he continues to be one of the most vociferous supporters of the Prime Minister. Possibly more vociferous than what he used to be as the minister when he was in the government. So I would not be surprised at all that because of his quote-unquote good conduct, if he comes back, he had to be moved out because a certain message had to be sent within the party and also to the community outside, that somebody has to be found fault for, what the mess was going on in the IT sector. So I think that this is Mr. Modi asserting himself that myself, it's all about himself, the first person singular, and the stamp is fully established. To start it right from 2014 onward. You would remember that the four veterans wrote a letter in October, November 2015 after the Bihar elections. But at that time, the others, Nitin Gadkari and others, or even Shivraj Chauhan, did not intervene to resurrect the democratic platforms within the party. So now you did not speak up then. No one else is going to speak up for you. It's Pastor Nimola's quotation all the time, once again.
Finally, Radhika, the non-inclusion of Yogi and Hemanta, you spoke about it, but is there a signaling here also? Because Yogi is seen as Modi's heir apparent. He got to move the political resolution in the national executive.
Yeah, I don't know where, which fly on the wall was present when, the leaders allegedly offered a place on the parliamentary board to Yogi. I mean, these things are never known in the BJP, as Shekhar said. Nothing is out, till it is finally out. So I think a decision has been taken to confine the chief ministers to their states. Work. You all have elections coming up, Lok Sabha, state elections, and so on. So confine yourself. That was probably one message, except Devendra Fadnavis. And in any case, Devendra Fadnavis is a deputy CM, not the CM. When he was
Sonowal, is there a message for Hemanta in bringing in Sonowal?
Yes, there is definitely. I mean, I am very sure that there is a message. Hemanta Biswa Sarma is like the lord of all his surveys in the east, and not just the northeast. I mean, he's also become an interventionist in Odisha and West Bengal. Now, that won't be entirely to the liking of the Delhi boss, or the bosses, if I may say so. Of course, Amit Shah kind of works through Hemanta Biswa Sarma, but Hemanta Biswa Sarma also has ambitions, has pretensions of his own. So the low-key, soft-spoken Sonowal has been inducted in the apex decision-making body, more out of symbolism. I'm not saying that Sonowal is about to create problems for Sarma, no, far from that. But there is a message that we do have a counterweight against you as well. So don't kind of try and become this omniscient figure in the East. I mean, I think that is
last. Thank you. On Hemanta, Shekhar, your view of Sonowal Hemanta equation. Quick last word.
Yeah, the idea is to send out that message because in terms of Sonowal's image in Assam, he commands, he is known for a kind of conduct which is seen as cleaner politics, a straight politician, no corruption charges. That is one
not
part.
Effective politics.
Yeah, but no, his first term was good, but then they had to accommodate Hemanta Sharma for a simple reason. He was useful for the party in terms of expansion in the Northeast, the way the government changed hands. That is one. And also we have to remember, two things have happened. One is the constitution of the parliamentary board. Another is the Central Election Committee. Fadnavis, your Bhupendra Yadav, they are all in the Central Election Committee, which will meet only when the elections have to be decided. And also we'll have to remember, whenever elections are held, the chief ministers of the concerned states, as well as, if they are CLP, the legislature party leaders, they attend, apart from other state presidents and etc. So that is in the electoral committee, Central Election Committee. Parliamentary board comes into question when they have to choose a chief minister after the elections or make some major decisions. And those decisions are never decided in the board. They are decided in the informal meetings, and then the board is met to make the announcement.
Like the CWC. Not much different between the two parties. But thank you all for explaining and decoding some of the behind the scenes in the new BJP reshuffle. And of course, we await whether there will be a cabinet reshuffle or not. On that note, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.